Welcome to another episode. My name is Dean Vassy. You can find me on X at hashtag Kangas, Instagram hashtag Kangaroos podcast. Tonight, I'm joined by my Monday regular Jesse. Another late withdrawal from Mark tonight, Jesse. He's got to cook a barbecue or something like that. He's let us down again. I think he will be getting those boos the next time he comes back on. But Jesse, let's just get straight into it. What are your thoughts on the game over the weekend? Not a bad, honourable loss. I know we're a bit up past that, but against a flying team. And I'll talk to you off there about this, but against a team that's flying, it's not a bad loss in the end.
Yeah, look, I think I said to you before we joined that if you had said, "Are you happy with that result?" Would I take it? And I probably would. I think it was a game that there was a lot of opportunity for Adelaide to run away with it. Now they've been deadly. We've seen that the first few weeks in particular. The big one for me is that I think most North fans during the game saw a lot of mistakes, and that probably made it feel a little bit worse. I kind of walked away neutral. There are a lot of I still see us being significantly better than we have been in the past, and we're not just a pushover like we are in the past. We actually did show some fight deep into the game, which I'm proud of myself. But there were also some very I think the first 3 weeks, it hasn't just been us being shit. It's just been a lot of mistakes that look like they could be fixed, if that makes sense. In terms of the first game, I think we should have won. Last week, we obviously got the job done. I just feel like there was a lot of opportunity for us to get in front. But Adelaide deserved to win. They played better than us. They were more mature. Their forward line is deadly. Not that ours was bad by any means. Larky and Curtis getting on the board again. There's some things to tidy up, and I think back at Marvel against the Swans, who are coming off a bye early in the season, which I don't actually think is going to be good for them. I think there's an opportunity for us to be very competitive.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot to like, and like we sort of mentioned, the Crows are flying at the moment. They just look so big at the moment. They've come, like I'll talk to you off air about this. They've matured a lot in the last 12 months, and I'm not just talking about players having more experience. Their bodies are really filling out. They're all huge, and we struggle to tackle them. They're breaking tackles. They look like they've been taking TRT or something like that, or maybe something a bit stronger than that. Jesse, in the last 12 months, they're a huge team, aren't they?
Oh, they are big. Look, a lot of people go, we started our rebuild at the same time of them, and we should be disappointed. I think we've gone a very different way. They have the advantage of being an Adelaide team, so they can obviously attract people home. But yeah, they've put a lot of size on, and I mean their midfield is older than ours. If you look at who their main primary midfielders are, you're talking your Jordan Dawson, who's an out and out superstar. He's an incredible player. But Rory Laird, who is obviously playing 250. Ben Keys is not young. Matt Crouch is not young. So their midfield is pretty older and experienced. It's they've got some kids sprinkled in there, but they have a better core, I would say. And average age, they were higher than us. Experience lower, but you got to take I don't think the average is a good way of measuring it, given that we have 3 players who are old and they're just dragging the average up. So look, a lot to learn, a lot to like, a lot to improve on. But yeah, I think Adelaide is a good example of where we need to get to physically.
Well, yeah, hopefully in the next year or two, we can certainly get to that level. I mean, we've still got a lot of players in their early 20s that have certainly got a lot of filling out to do. We've seen Todd Power in the last couple of years really fill out as well. We just want to see 4 or 5 of those boys really come through. In the next year or two. Now, I want to go to the back line, Jesse, and this is probably the most interesting talking point throughout the course of the game. There's some interesting matchups, and they try to play common on the small forward, which is Ben Keys or whoever was going through there. Even though the Crows have those 3 tall forwards, Fogarty, Walker, and Thilthorpe, I mentioned on a Friday evening we may try that we play Luke McDonald even on a Tex Walker, but he ended up playing on Darcy Fogarty. How do you think that worked for us?
I thought that was a masterstroke. I don't look. Sure, their players kicked Walker 4, Thilthorpe 3, Fogarty 2. But a bit of that was always going to happen. I thought McDonald had a fantastic game. It was probably the best game I've seen him play in years. He did a very good job on a deadly forward. I really rate Darcy Fogarty, and he did, a very solid job on him. And it allowed Comden to play that role. Because we know that his strength isn't one-on-one defense. His role is intercept, and we want to use him for that. I think it's a thing we could do going forward in terms of playing the two key defenders, playing a medium size and maybe getting him to play up a little bit, and then get Comden as your interceptor. It's definitely an option. I thought to keep them to the score we did was pretty good. So yeah, that I thought was a really brave move because it could have easily, he could have easily torn McDonald apart. But kudos to McDonald. I think Kingy probably got it on, nailed it when he said if he just focuses on defending and doesn't focus about all the other weight and everything else, he can actually do a solid job one-on-one defending.
Yeah.
So if he just focuses on that week in, week out, he's got a spot in this team because, yeah, he was probably our best defender.
And that's saying something too. We've been critical of him, probably, especially after the first round, and even going back to last year. But yeah, look, full credit to him. He did really well. I think he caught Darcy Fogarty out, and it wasn't just like a team defense where Charlie Comden was coming over the top and intercepting everything. He quite more than held his own one-on-one against Darcy Fogarty, and it was a lot of one-on-one matchups. He lost the odd one or two, but I thought he's fantastic. Even Taylor Walker, I know he kicked 4 goals, but 2 of them were straight out of the ruck, so you can't really count that as well. Like you got to, there's a bigger picture.
To 100%, 100%. I thought the only one who really got a hold of us, for the most part, was Phil Thorpe. Yeah, I think Walker, like you said, 2 out of the ruck. Phil Thorpe, he's a big boy. He's a big boy. Yeah. So look, there's positives to it from a defensive perspective. Getting the ball out of the defense, I think we're over possessing the ball and we are chipping it around at times, and then we're just dump kicking it. I like when we run and gun a little bit more. I know that sounds counterintuitive. There's a good chance to, because we've obviously had a go at that North ball style or whatever you want to call it. I think if you chip it around, it's good, but we're just working out that balance.
No, and it'll take some time. That's for sure. We're only 3 rounds into the season now. We've seen Harry Sheezel play the last quarter, move to half back. He hasn't had the greatest start to the season. Such is his lofty expectations. After a down probably first 3 quarters. I even mentioned, I think in the group chat, that it's probably his career worst game, and that's saying something. He had 11 touches with 91% disposal efficiency in that last quarter. Is that something that we may have to implement for the next few weeks? Because a lot does fall on Caleb Daniel's shoulders to rebound everything, and it may release him more where there's not as much pressure on Caleb Daniel.
Yeah, I think that's a good question because Caleb Daniel, people are, getting pretty disappointed with because there's a few turnovers, but there's also a lot of positives. If you go look at his effective kicks, most of them are effective. It's just that you remember like most things, you remember the negatives. Look, I think the big thing with Sheezel is he's got a high floor. So this is the worst that he's played in his career. And he, over the last 3 weeks, is still averaging 28 disposals, 10 contested possessions, 5 clearances. It's just he's just turning the ball over more than he has before. I think his disposal efficiency is down to 70, which is still better than a lot of players. And probably the main part is that he's not scoring, and he isn't getting a lot of goal assists. So his impact with his kicking isn't as high. But that will come back. They're all things that he'll get out of this slump. So I don't think we need to change anything. But absolutely, there is an opportunity to have him coming off the half-back line because you don't need him to be Mr. Solve it up the ground anymore necessarily. There's lots of other. You could swap him and Finn O'Sullivan, for example, and play Finn O'Sullivan more on the half-forward line and give Jai Michael Voss Simpkin the more midfield time. So there's some opportunities to tweak some stuff. You could give him a little bit more outside time, build his confidence back up if you wanted to. Maybe play a Finn O'Sullivan up forward a little bit because he's got some class. So there's some things you can absolutely tweak. But yeah, you could also just leave him doing what he's doing, and I think he'd get out of this form slump. But again, the fact that we've been able to do what we've done the last 3 weeks and be competitive with him playing his worst football. I see that as a positive as opposed to a negative. I think it says more about some of the other players that we'll get to.
Oh, definitely. Now, and that's the thing. Like, we've got a couple of players that are probably not at their peak best at the moment, which is fine, which is a really good sign, like you said. Now, while you're talking about Finn O'Sullivan, now he seems to be growing each week. Did some really good things, even after a bad turnover in the third quarter that cost us a goal. We already know that he's going to be a player, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, look, he shows all the signs. Some of those twirls out of the contest are fantastic. Look, the interesting one for me is that he obviously took had a good game with intercepts in the preseason game, and we've based it on that. I don't know if I like him at halfback. I like the skill set, but that skill set could be applied to the wing. It could be applied up forward. I would almost rather a McKercher or a Simpkin being that other halfback flanker, and putting O'Sullivan further up the ground. There's almost a part of me that would like to do that. I think it would be good for all involved. So, but yeah, he shows all the signs. He's not going to be a high possession player yet. He'll learn to accumulate it as he goes. He made a couple of mistakes, but every player makes a couple of mistakes.
Of course.
Obviously, I'd like for him to get more than 11 or 12 touches a week. I'd love him to get, a bit more than that. Because you want to get the ball in his hand a bit more. Because I love his run through the middle. When he gets the ball, he's generally pretty attacking. And there's a bit of me, and his kicking is generally pretty good. So there's a part of me that wouldn't mind him, as I said, on that wing or half forward flank, and maybe throw a McKercher back, which I think is going to be better for him, or a Simpkin at times.
No, definitely. We'll definitely talk about Simpkin soon. Now, Toby Pink, he came in for some. I mentioned him before, but he came in for mixed reviews online. I actually thought he played well. I know Walker kicked 4 goals, like I mentioned, but 2 of them were out of the ruck. But look, I think he's more than held his own, considering he came in for Griffin Logue as a replacement for him. And I questioned at the time. I was thinking, well, why not play Callum Dawson? He's more of a safer bet. But I think he's been quite solid.
Yeah, I think he's been fine. There's nothing about Pink's game that I actually thought he played one of his better games on the weekend.
No,
I don't think you can take the goals kicked as a reflection of how they performed.
Definitely not.
Because I think a lot of the players did a lot of positive things. Yeah, I think people may be going a bit rough on Pink. Is it ideal? Would you rather another, key in the team? It's going to be dependent against who we're playing. Swans are an interesting one in terms of how we man up on them. But yeah, I thought he was solid. I thought he did as much as Logue did in the first few weeks.
Well, that's exactly right. He hasn't done anything, worse than Griffin Logue did in round 1 or anything like that. So, yeah, and I thought he was quite good last week as well. So, yeah, I mean, if Griffin Logue's back this week, then he's obviously the logical replacement for Pink. But, yeah, he hasn't done anything wrong in my eyes anyway. Yeah, we'll go to the midfield, and I think we were well beaten there early in the first quarter. And it certainly felt like the mature bodies of the Crows really broke a lot of our tackles. They were very strong in the contest, weren't they? I think it was 138 to 125 contested possessions. And I felt like that's where they really got on top of us, particularly early in that first quarter, Jesse.
Oh, yeah, look, they dominated us around the ball and around the clearance, which is our strength, especially at the start of the game. We wrestled it back. But yeah, they started hot, and like we talked about, it's a dominant midfield. It is a very strong midfield. It will go up there against some of the good midfielders in the competition, and they've got some experienced, bigger bodies in there. Like I said, Jordan Dawson, superstar. They're going to get the job done against a lot of teams. So there's a bit of a learning lesson. I think we talked about it earlier. One of the big things for me was our midfielders and their impact again. I think it reverted back to the first week. And some of that was probably the pressure, like you said, in terms of them being able to pressure the player. Like Powell, 50%, only 4 of his kicks were effective. Sherry, 50%, only had 9 clangers. Parker went at 40% kicking, 4 effective kicks. LDU, 54% kicking. So there was a lot of mistakes made, and I think a lot of that is the Crows' fantastic pressure that they put on around the ball. One of the things we talked about before we joined on air was around the tackles, and there was just, I think, as I said, there were 6 players on our team who didn't lay a tackle. So we've got to get a little bit better at that. There was something, but I think all of that is correctable. It's not like the first half of last year where you're just going, what the hell is going on? Where do you start? This is little things, but you can see the fight. So, look, a lot of positives there. I think that people have got to, take into account. Yeah,
we're the closer at, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just look a lot bigger than us.
I'll give you an interesting one, just really quickly. Just on the defenders, it just prompted me on something on the last topic. So contested defensive one-on-ones. So contested the defender playing one-on-one on someone. Comden had 8. Pink had 3. Now, so that says to me that a lot of the stuff being scored was not a contested defender on forward scenario. It was either uncontested because they broke away and gave it to someone who was out free, or like you said, pushed out the ruck and kicks a goal. So Pink, for example, had 3. He lost none of them. So in the 3 one-on-ones that he had, he didn't lose one of them. So I think that's a positive. Like Core had 3 and he lost 2, albeit he had a pretty tough role.
Definitely.
Yeah. So just back on the Pink thing, it's just I think that kind of highlights that I think he was really solid when he was one-on-one with the defender, with the forward. So, but yeah, back onto the main question. Yeah, look, I think this is things we're going to tidy up again. It was all stuff that can be fixed, and I think that's the main part that we need to focus on.
Now, I've seen LDU have an influence in a couple of centre clearances in the third quarter where we kicked 2 quick goals. I think it was within a minute because of him and creating space for players. But I feel like he's almost ready to take a game on, like where he's going to get 25, 30 touches because he only had 19 touches, which we would love for him to get 6 or 7 more because of the influence he has. I mean, it's just a little bit frustrating that he's not getting more of the ball, isn't it, at the moment, Jesse?
Well, he's getting the most midfield time by a fair way. So,
yeah.
Look, you could argue the last few weeks that he's obviously been pretty quiet. I had a multi on him and he didn't get 20, so that pissed me off. Look, you are right. He really got us back into the game when they had taken momentum in the third, which was, very positive. But he does need to get a little bit more. I know we're sharing the ball around a lot. We are a pretty high disposal team. But he's the one you want ball in hand coming out of the midfield, as opposed to some of the others. He's just more consistent with his disposal. I know, he's had patches in his career where he hasn't been, but he's more consistent in his ability to get the ball and have impact from it, as opposed to a power, for example. So, you want LDU getting more than 19. He doesn't have to get 30. I'm glad that we're balancing the workload out. But you want him getting his mid-20s. That 19 is probably just not enough from a key midfielder. So it's an interesting one. They probably played a little bit more defensive on him as well, because they know that he has the impact. So yeah, you definitely want to get more ball in his hand.
Well, I've just looking at his stats over the first 3 games, only averaging 20.7 possessions per game. Last year, averaged a career high 27.7. Tackles are a little bit down. Clearances only 4 per game, as opposed to 6.3 last year. 3.6 centre clearances, only 3 this year. So he's down in a lot of areas, which is, like we mentioned before, can only be a good thing as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of room for improvement with LDU. But look, one player that has really come through big time is our captain at the moment. Now, you mentioned him last week, but I don't think he's getting the kudos that he should be getting. Like only 12 CBAs, 31 touches, 9 clearances, 1 goal, a team high 7 scoring involvements, a team high 680 metres gained. I think it's going under the radar, Jesse, that no one is talking about the good season or the great season that Jai Simpkin is having.
I tweeted about it last night in terms.
I did see that, yeah.
In terms of his stats, and I found this shocked me a little bit. So yeah, like you said, Simpkin averaging career high disposals. Player rating is the highest it's ever been, so 16.53. Champion data 112. Disposals 28.3, contested 12.7, clearances 7, goal average 1, goal assist 0.7, which was equal with 18 when he was playing forward. Score involvements, yeah, like you said, this is his lowest CBA since 2020, and he is off the charts in terms of his impact. A lot of people just think if the Simpkin gets the ball, bombs it forward. I don't think that's a fair assessment on how
No.
he's playing. He's getting very minimal centre bounce attendance, like you said, and he's up in every single statistic. His disposal, his contested possession, his ability to win the ball, his pressure's good, his tackling's good. As I said, player rating and champion data. I did a little bit of a breakdown last night of players in the competition who are around the same, the same mark. So players that are averaging, 15 player rating, at least 110 Supercoach or champion data points, 5 contested disposals, 1 goal, and 0.5 goal assists a game. And there's only 5 players in the comp doing it. So Zach Merritt, Jake Saligo, Isaac Rankin, Tuke Miller, Jai Simpkin. Of them, he is leading clearance. He is averaging more clearances than all of those players. Do you think he gets as much midfield time as them? Nah. No, of course he doesn't. So, and they've all got their strengths in different areas, but they're the only 5 in the comp who, what I like to have is they're my key numbers. They're the ones that I like to see. It shows which one of your midfielders are really having the impact you want. They're affecting the scoreboard. They've got their goal assists. They're winning clearance. He's probably in the top 5 or 6 midfielders in the comp right at this point in time, and he's not even playing midfield. So there's almost a part of me that would love to see if he got a little bit more midfield time, what he could produce in the form that he's in. But yeah, he's absolutely thriving. Whether or not it's the sole captaincy, whether or not it's just better players around him now and taking some of the leadership burden off him with your Parkers, Darlings, Daniel.
I think it's helping, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's just got his body right, and I think he's just fit, and I think he's just really, really confident. But he is playing. If he does this for the whole year, he'll be all Australian. Now he's not getting the kudos he deserves. 100% he's not. And coaches' votes. He did poll in this game. I think he was our highest. I think he got 4. So only 2 North players got coaches' votes. Him and Larky. He got 4 coaches' votes. So the coaches obviously rated him and rated his impact on the game. So, yeah, look, I think he's getting looked over. And if he can maintain this, he'll be one of the best midfielders in the comp.
Well, to say that he's only getting 12 CBAs as well, look, and that's one of the least. I mean, we had LDU obviously has 26, but you got Tom Powell, Parker 17, Will Phillips 16, which we'll talk about in a second, Jai Simpkin 12, Harry Sheasel 10. So, yeah, I mean, who knows? He could even take, another step forward. But look, he's really leading from the front, which is probably something you couldn't say about him in the last year or two, because it's almost like the last couple of years he's tried too hard and his body hasn't probably been right. He's had a lot of issues. Last year, that concussion, I think, threw him off completely, particularly in the first half of the year. But this year, I mean, we even talked about in the preseason that, Indigenous All-Stars game, he was, you could sort of sense then that he was going to have a big year. He looked ripped. He looked like he was fit. He looked like he was ready to play a lot of midfield. I mean, the signs were there, and now he's just thriving.
Oh, 100%. It just makes a big deal. I think what's overlooked a little bit, and this is any player in our team who's playing better than they had previously. Just having additional players in the team and sharing that load, I think, makes a lot of players better. Like, again, if Simpkin was playing like this last year, oh God, we wouldn't be anywhere near it. We would have been so far off the pace for the whole year. I just think that a lot of players, it just means that what it means is we can have a game where a player doesn't play their best football and we're still able to be competitive now. More players are able to have bad games. We just need to get them to have bad games less regularly, have more players have good games on a regular basis, and that comes. But yeah, look, I think there's a lot of positives to start the year. It's going to be interesting how we maintain the next 2 months in particular. Going from the Swans back to South Australia, back here for Carlton, back to South Australia.
Yeah.
That's going to be really tough and then I think we come back for Essendon. So you've got a really solid next 5-6 weeks, which are going to be interesting. And there's probably some winnable games in there. But we need to maintain the effort. I think that's the main thing for me. Look, Jimmy Bartell, I think, was really important in what he said. He goes, "It's when Damien Barrett was crapping on about 10 wins, otherwise, we're failed." Bartell made a really good point. He goes, "It's not about wins and losses at this point. It's about percentage, because that shows your level of competitiveness. Now we're still going over 100%." So, and that's what we should be aiming for, to make sure we're over 100% this year. So, look, we're going to obviously play some harder opposition. We're going to play some weaker opposition. We need a bigger test pool. But at the moment, we're more on par in terms of our attack and defense ranked in the comp with an Essendon, as opposed to Eagles and Richmond, who are like where we were last year, far in the bottom of the quadrant. We're getting closer. So, a lot of positives there. A lot of positives.
Well, I think our percentage has been like in the 70s, 60s, 70s the last few years. So it probably says something. Whereas, like you said, we're still 1 win, 2 losses, and we've got a percentage of over 100. So, look, it's not a bad idea to go for that bar, 100%. But if you go in the 90s, that's a big improvement from last 5 years. Anyway.
100%. 100%. We should be aiming for 100%. But look. It is a massive improvement regardless, but I think we should be aiming for that. I'm not too focused on the wins. I'm more focused on that percentage, because that shows that you're playing well. I think I've mentioned before, my dad's a Brisbane supporter, so I watch a lot of Brisbane. I've got a very soft spot for Brisbane. In their last year of being crap, obviously they had 20 years 15 years, 10 years, whatever, of being pretty irrelevant. The year before, now you can say Lockie Gill joined, Charlie Cameron joined. That makes a massive difference. If those two join our club, I think we're infinitely better as well. But the year before that, they lost a lot of games by a small amount, and their percentage was they only won like 3 or 4 games, but their percentage was really good. And I remember, again, because I watch a lot of the games, watching it at the time and saying, and in my predicted ladder, actually having them not second, they ended up finishing second, but having them much higher up the ladder, because you could just see signs of being able to win games. You add those two into it, it made them infinitely better. I think I'm seeing bits of that with how we're playing at the moment in terms of the competitiveness. I still don't think that Clarko and the team know what the best mix is, and we're seeing that. We've talked about it. I think we're playing too many midfielders. I think there's some tweaks we need to make to the makeup of the team, and they're learning that. But I don't think we're that far away, based on the effort and the fact that we're able to punch back now. When we get punched in that first quarter against Adelaide, they hit us hard. I thought we were down and out. I thought this is a 10-goal loss here. And the fact that we fought back multiple times, and it was really only that last 5-10 minutes when we were probably buggered that they, really got momentum. I think we're getting there. I think it's just, it's a lot closer in terms of competitiveness.
No, definitely right. We'll get back to another midfielder here, Jesse. Will Phillips, only the 12 touches, didn't get subbed out this week. I think he's teetering on the edge right now. Only 3 touches in his second half as well. Where's he at?
It's a great question, isn't it? Because we saw his preseason, we saw what he can do. Look, the problem is for mine that I still think he is a really good player. And he did some good things on the weekend when he did get the ball. I think when he gets the ball, he's clean with the ball. He makes some pretty good decisions most of the time, is my take on him. He's just not getting enough of the ball. And the truth is there's only so much ball to share around. And we just talked about LDU not getting enough of it. I just don't think I just think we've got too many midfielders.
Well, we sort of mentioned, we just talked about Jai Simpkin not having enough CBAs. If Will Phillips comes out of that team, then all of a sudden he gets another 10 CBAs.
He does, and you play a winger or something else, an outside runner. Just gives players a bit different. I've for the last, since we got him, I'm a big Will Phillips fan, and if he ends up in another club, I reckon that he'll thrive. If he gets a lot more midfield time, I think he could still become a really good player. My problem is at this point in time, and less a Powell or someone is injured, and he gets a lot more midfield time, and he assumes a bit more of the mantle of the main man. I just don't see how we can play him in the team. I just don't think it's working. And I mean, the elephant in the room is that Wardlaw is getting closer to coming back, and if you added Wardlaw to this team and took out a Stevens or something, it just wouldn't work.
No, that's right.
So he has to come in and take one of the roles of the players in there. And then, even then, it throws up the whole mix of things a little bit. People have to get less. We've probably got too many midfielders, which is one of the reasons why I'm not fussed with Simpkin. With Sheasel getting a massive amount of midfield time. If the others are performing to the level we want to perform them at, so. Yeah, I think that's the elephant in the room, that we need to work out what we're going to do once Wardlaw is fit and coming into that team. And the obvious one is Phillips going out, but I don't see how right now why you would keep him in the team right now. We talked about it. I'd rather a bit more outside run.
Well, he's probably going to be lucky this week because Zach Fisher does hamstring in reserves, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And there's probably no other replacement outside of that. I didn't see enough to suggest that anyone else could come in for his spot. So he might get another week. But I think you might have mentioned this off air. He might start as a sub this week. Who knows? We'll continue to go forward. Now, the forward line, I felt like the first 20 minutes of the first quarter was a little bit of previous years and bombing it in long, far too much to contest. Finished the quarter off strong, and I'm actually not worried about the forward line because I know if we give them an advantage like we did for periods in that third quarter, I think we kicked 3 goals. If you kick it to their advantage, they can put a score on, and they can put it on quite quickly, can't they, Jesse?
Oh, yeah, look, absolutely. The fact that Larky got 4 goals, Curtis got another 2. Yeah, look, we can still score. I would have liked a slightly higher score. That would have been nice. But if we're scoring over 70, I'm pretty happy with that because both teams, I think, went pretty defensive early on. I know it looked like an offensive game, but
yeah,
for the second, third quarter, it was pretty much an arm wrestle in particular. So, I think the forward line's doing a really good job. I think they're working a lot better in terms of, and they're learning how to play with each other. I think all of that still needs to be taken into consideration. But yeah, look, you've got Larky with your 4, Constanti got 2, Curtis 2. All of them had their moments, and then you had some others come in and do what they need to do. So I think there's some tweaks we can still make, but yeah.
No, there's still a little bit to go there. Now, another 4 goals for Nick Larky, you mentioned, man. Like, he's got to be a big chance to win a Coleman now, doesn't he?
Oh, he'd have to be, wouldn't he? If he's averaging this much.
I'd say so.
He's in really good form. He's in fantastic form.
What's he kicked, 12?
Yeah, he's kicked 12.
13? Yeah, 12, yeah.
Yeah, 12. So he's averaging 4 a game. King's the only one with a higher average because obviously he's played 1 less game and he's kicked 2 less goals. I think he's averaging 5 a game. Look, Jack Darling had 1 goal on the weekend, but massive tick for mine, did some really smart things, and ultimately I think the flow-on effect is the other 2 had a really good game. Would have liked more from Zerha. He kind of drifted out of it a little bit. He did some okay things, but you would like to see him scoring a bit more. That's probably the only thing, more consistently, because I think he's had 1 really good game, 1 just missing everything, and then this one he wasn't too much of a factor. So, look, I think it's still the Darling effect. I would like more tackles inside 50. Curtis is doing a really good job this year of applying pressure. Constanti, a lot of people comment on his pressure. He actually didn't have that many pressure acts, and he didn't have that many tackles inside 50. But he kicked 2 goals. So that's the important part. It was a Hanson Jr. who I don't think really offered anything on the weekend because we didn't really play him on that wing role again. We played him more forward and he just got lost. We probably still 1 small forward short. Your man Geordie Payne, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, look, he looked good on the weekend, Jesse. We'll talk about him soon. Now, while you're talking about Robert Hansen, now we probably got subbed out as well because maybe he didn't go hard enough at a couple of contests. I could sort of sense there was they did go to the box after 1 Robert Hansen effort, and it looked like Clarkson was pretty upset. And it wasn't soon after that. I think he might have even been subbed out. Now, it's maybe a good lesson for the boy that he can't hide out on the football field or where the Crows' bodies just a little bit too big for him to handle in a game like that, Jesse. Is that why maybe he's probably subbed out?
Oh, look, my only thing with that would be if their bodies are too big, you're not playing the right sport. No one should be that much bigger
Yeah,
than.
of course.
I don't want to call anyone soft. Don't want a football field soft, but he does give a lot of soft efforts in terms of he just gets pushed off the ball too easily. Gets
That's
pushed
what
out of
happened,
position
yeah.
too easily, and then he doesn't follow it up to apply the pressure to try and get back into it. He's good when he's got uncontested ball movement and he can run with it. He's a good field kick. He just doesn't do enough for me. He's not scoring goals. So, look, he had some positive moments last week in terms of ball movement, but I still think that, in his role, if Cassant, he needs to be scoring. I just don't think he's offering enough, and I just don't think he's strong enough, to be able to compete against, some of the more experienced teams and bigger teams like an Adelaide. So I think, there's some truth in terms of what you're saying.
Look, he was good last week on the fast track against Melbourne. And he seems to be like a confidence player as well. But if things are going his way, then he can really excel. And that generally happens with a lot of 19, 20, 21-year-olds. They're still trying to find their feet at this level. So, yeah, look, I'm not going to write him off or anything like that. It was just an off game, and I could sort of sense that Clarkson seemed to get frustrated with him a little bit in the box. But look, I think he'll bounce back. I've really liked his role out on the wing, so I think that's a possibility. He's definitely got a lot of class, and he's starting to, when things are going his way, he's starting to show that he does belong out on the football field. But maybe the Crows would just. Maybe they just were a little bit too big for him because, like you said, he did get pushed off the ball a little bit too easy. So that just comes with it.
And he has in some of the other games as well. Just
it got shown out a bit more.
It did. It got shown out more so than. And look, small forwards, you need to have multiple bows. You see that with Rankin, for example.
Jeez, that guy.
Yeah, they've got. Look, they're pretty lucky. They've obviously got him and Rochelle, who. Look, glad he's okay. Obviously cracked ribs, so that's not 3 fractured ribs. So kudos to him for getting back up, but he's going to miss some time. But look, like you said before with Phillips, because there's a few injuries in the seconds, that probably impacts us slightly. But based on what he offered on the weekend, I'd rather Zane Dersma in the team.
Yeah, look, he wasn't. Yeah, I'll talk about Zane Dersma too as well. There's a lot of talk about him lately too, Jesse. But one more player I will mention, and that's Tristan Sherry. Now, he was seen grabbing his hammy early in the game. I was a little concerned, because we'll get smashed in the ruck when he wasn't there, particularly early. But he came back on, and thank God he did. Even though he wasn't at his best game, such is his lofty expectations we put him in now. He's so important given the midfield first use, isn't he?
Oh, 100%. He didn't have his best game. He made a few mistakes, but as you said, you've got to take into account that he went through, he went through a bit earlier. No, he wasn't 100% fit. You can tell that. But without him in there, when Darling goes in there, we get shown out a little bit. It's a stopgap, but at some stage we need to sort that out.
Yeah, I don't think it's too bad at the moment. We're not getting too exposed. It's only for 4 or 5 CBAs anyway, generally. The one that disappointed me was when we got on that bit of a roll in that third quarter, and Sherry and LDU, the next centre bounce, they had Darling and they took LDU off the ground. I would have just liked to see one more CBA with them in there because they were having a big influence. That's the only issue I had at the time, and I think we lost a centre clearance after that. So
I think I was driving at that one point in time. I had to quickly go grab something, and I was listening to the radio, and I think it was Kane Horns actually, and he made a comment about why would you change this mix-up? Like, you understand people's fitness, but why would you change that mix-up? And, it completely arrested, the momentum. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's a good lesson for everyone, even coaches, I suppose, Jesse. But we'll move forward. Not a bad loss in the end, like we've sort of mentioned. There's a lot of positives, and you can read what's his name, Ricky Mangiti's article as well. He talks a lot about it as well. Now we'll talk about the reserves. They lost the game in the last quarter after being up for most of the game.
Yeah.
I didn't see anyone there that could really push for a case. Whitlock was outstanding in the back line. Will Dawson was good back there too. A few VFL boys were good. McPherson, Tomlinson. But with the injuries, like to Zach Fisher and Eddie Ford, I don't think anyone is pushing their claim, are they?
No, not really. Look, yeah, like you said, the injuries have really cruelled our ability to bring people in who would replace people we would potentially have out of the side. So that's hurt us a fair bit. Whitlock, fantastic, but again, when would you? He probably gets a game this year at some stage, but you're not going to rush him in at this point in time. You'd have to pick which forward line you'd be happy to do that against. And again, what do you change up about the back line? Look, as I said, Zane Dersma, he's been pretty quiet, but he got the 2 goals. He's still dangerous in front of goal, and that's 2 goals. Yeah, I still think he's a player who probably will play better at senior level anyway, or junior level anyway. He does need to build up a little bit more fitness, so maybe a couple more weeks, but I'd rather him in the side than the 2 small forwards, just because I just don't think that they're of the quality, long term for us to become a better side. So, yeah, it would be good. Hopefully, Fisher, recovers soon, and then that gives us some options. Ford, if they give him a game once he comes back from hammy. So there's a bit of pressure, but probably not in the right spots at this point in time.
Now, just on Zane Dersma, and looking at socials and people even messaging me, they seem to be panicking on him already. He was quiet, he only had 10 touches, but like you said, he kicked a couple of goals, but surely he needs more time, doesn't he? He did some nice things, but he's going to get better for the run, isn't he? Because he's barely had a pre-season as well, Jesse, and that makes a big difference.
Oh, it makes a massive difference. You can absolutely tell when a player hasn't had a pre-season versus, unless they're much later on in their career, it just makes a massive, massive difference. Like we've seen that the last few years with players that haven't had a pre-season. Look, the other thing with the Crows as well that's worth adding is that they only have like 1 injury on their list. Now they've got Rochelle, but they're really healthy. They had a really healthy pre-season. They're really healthy now. I think that was shown on the weekend as well in terms of their ability to run the game out a bit better. It's just they're really fit.
They are. Yeah. Now we'll go past the reserves now. We'll move forward to the Swans this week, who are 1 and 2 as well. Interesting game here, Jesse. I think it's got all the hallmarks of being a close, tough contest. Well, the Swans only seem to play in close games within a goal, so this could be another one, I think.
Oh God, you just reminded me of the infamous.
Yeah, we might as well talk about that.
Oh, wowee.
Well, hopefully we keep the substitutions.
Do we know if Sydney's got any players due back, like Callum Mills or something?
I don't think Callum Mills scares us, does he? I think he's pretty much done. So, nothing against him personally. I don't think he's a match winner in his own right. He's not like a Isaiah Pickett for Melbourne or anything like that.
No, it'll be interesting to see how we match up on them. But we're only paying $250 for this game. I think that's the shortest we've been all year. I think it's the shortest we've been all year. So the punters are thinking we're a decent chance. It's at Marvel, our home deck. We can run. I think we can, run some of their older players off their feet a little bit. They've got a deadly midfield. We saw what they did to us last year. They tore us apart. Their small forwards are still going to be an issue. Your Papleys, etc. Their key forwards are neither here or there. And they're gettable down back. You just got to someone's got to play a defensive role on the Lizard.
Yeah,
I don't know who that is, but someone.
Maybe Costanti.
Yeah, well, someone's just. Well, is he quick enough though? Someone's just going to tag him.
Yeah, he gives a lot of drive out of that back line, doesn't he? For him with that weak left foot.
You saw week 1 versus week 2. It was a massive difference. It's a shame that they got over Freo in the end because that probably got their confidence up a little bit, unfortunately. Because before that, they didn't. They weren't really playing great football. So look, but I think they're absolutely gettable, and I'm expecting us to crash in with really good effort, and it should if we were to lose, it should be a pretty close loss.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask for. Look, if if we can put in another competitive performance, I mean, we'd love to win, and we're a good chance to win, Jesse. But look, I think it'll be quite a close game. We're certainly showing signs that we can compete with the best. So, yeah, we'll see how we go. I don't think we got like George Wardlaw's still a few weeks away. That's probably the main one to come back into the team. Obviously, a couple of injuries have come through in the reserve, so we'll wait and see if anything happens with them and how long they're out for. If it's a concussion for Zach Fisher, it's probably just a week, and then but he'll probably need another run in the reserves after that. So we'll see. Just one more thing before I finish off. Defensive Player of the Week last week. I forgot to mention that earlier.
Luke McDonald.
Yeah, I've got Luke McDonald as well.
I don't think that needs any explanation. I think he did a fantastic job. I think we should be really happy with what he did. I think it's as simple as that, really. He did really, really well, and I think we should be, he should be proud of himself. And there's nothing. He was my person.
No, I think he was clearly the number one person. Going against a guy that's a much bigger body.
He'd been in good form as well.
Well, exactly right. He's been kicking goals for fun. So, he did a fantastic job. Patrick Allwood came in before. Give Durs the time he needs, and he's sort of saying people see a few players like the Wizard make an immediate impact and panic. So, look, just on the Dursman thing, I don't think it's any time to panic on him. Definitely not. Still a very young boy, and
Is he out of contract this year or next year? Because
I think it'll be next year. It's 3 years for first rounders now, isn't it? So,
I think so. After Jason, I'm pretty sure they changed to that.
Are you saying that we're going to trade him, Jesse?
Oh God, no! I was saying they changed that rule so we don't get screwed.
Like Jason Horne-Francis.
Yeah. Look. A lot of people are questioning a lot of things about him, and I think that's just a bit harsh for mine. I think he's a bit of a slower burn, but you can see the upside.
No, definitely can. Just on Jason Horne-Francis, were you impressed with his body language last weekend?
He did one.
He's got a lot of maturity to do still.
He did one thing really good. When he took the mark and kicked it, took the ball one-handed and then kicked a goal. That was good. But other than that, he's killing my Supercoach team. He's got a lot of maturing still to do. Even Kane Corns turned on him a little bit. So, that's the thing with a player like him and Harley Reid, for example. A lot of upside, but big personalities, and that's just going to take them some time.
Yeah, Harley Reid's certainly showing signs of immaturity as well out on the football field, isn't he? With some of the things he does.
Yeah, he is.
Do you think it's almost a little bit of a frustration of where he's at and which team he plays for? It sort of almost feels a bit like that.
It feels a lot to me like Jason Horne-Francis.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like to me. It just feels like very, very similar to that. Which is a shame for them, really. But is that what it kind of feels like to you?
Yeah, I feel like I don't think it's going to last. To be honest with you, whether it's this year or next year, I can't see him staying at West Coast long term.
No, I can't either. Which is a shame for them, but that's the risk you take when the risk you take.
Nah, and that's exactly right. Now, I didn't get your thoughts last week before we finished on Braden Maynard. Now, a lot of talk, and we'll take it with a grain of salt because it is Jay Clark, 6 years at $6 million. But let's say we did offer that, and let's say it's a fact. Would you be happy getting someone in that's about 29 years old on a long-term contract? And I guess he's the type of player we do need in that back half. He can play on a small, he can play on a medium, very good leader as well, comes from a good culture. Would you be happy to get him into the club?
I'm not worried about the money.
I don't think it's that much, to be honest with you.
No, and even if it is, we've got a lot of money. We don't need to worry about the money. I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about is the the length of the contract, because he's a competitive player. He's not going to last that long. I can't.
No, I think 4 years would be more than enough.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, the problem is you're just not going to get him out of there for, you know.
I think you would, because they're looking at Oscar Allen, and they've got to relieve some salary cap space. Apparently, they're pretty tight. And he's the type of player. If someone offered him, $3 million over 4 years, I'd probably just say, look, we've got to let you go, because they need another key forward more than anything.
Well, that's true, but I guess that would be a mutual thing at that stage, and whether or not they want, to do that, and they're prepared to do that.
But I don't think it's a bad thing to push their price up, like to sort of say, here's a 4 years at $3.5 million, you have to match, and they'll probably be under.
I don't think it's a bad thing. A lot of people are saying it's a really bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think that there's other players that we should be targeting first.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Are you looking at any position in particular that we should be looking at, or?
Look, I can understand why they're going for a small like a lockdown defender. We absolutely need a lockdown defender who can play on smalls. We know that. That's something we've got to continue to work on. But I'd be focusing more on a experienced small forward to take that other role, or hopefully being competitive enough that we can attract someone, not at the twilight of their career, someone who, like, your Sean Higgins, your Nick Del Santos, etc. So a midfielder who maybe is on the out, but still a good mid. So the money again doesn't worry me. It's just the contract length, and it just worries me a little bit, the contract length.
I mean, it might be a front-ended contract.
It would have to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah. You'd have to think so, where he gets $1.5 million for the first 3 years, and then 500,000 for his last 3 years or something like that. So, but yeah, that'll play it over time. Now, would you rather someone like a Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, who obviously has a few personal issues to deal with, but has a big upside, or would you rather Braden Maynard?
No, Jamarra Ugle-Hagan.
Yeah, just take a risk on him. 6 years, $6 million, no questions asked.
If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you got to have a crack at it. And he's a ridiculously good talent.
Yeah,
so you just got to back yourself to kind of straighten him out. I think one of the things as well is, you saw how happy he was to get around the Indigenous boys for the All-Stars game. He was someone like Jai Simpkin, who's obviously, Indigenous. He's the captain of the club. I think he would thrive having a few more players who are, probably Indigenous players at the club, and we've got a couple. I don't think the Dogs have got that many, if any. So maybe one. But I know that seems like something that might be quite trivial, but I think Simpkin as a leader and having someone there who can, reflect that on him might make a pretty big difference on him. And that could be a selling point as well. But they seem to get on really well. Look, he is definitely going into the year for mine. He's definitely going. Whether or not we can get him or not, yet to be seen.
Well, he may not play another game for the Bulldogs the way it's going.
He might not play another game ever again. You never know.
Well, that's exactly right. Look, I don't know, and I'm not speculating on what his mental health issues are, but it sounds like it's gotten a little bit toxic between him and the club at the moment. So yeah, which is quite sad, because you want to see good players playing football. And he's definitely a talent. But if he came to our club, I wouldn't have any problems with that. And like you said, maybe a Jai Simpkin, Luke Parker, these older veterans can be a really good role model for him. I'm not too sure if the Bulldogs can offer that. I don't know. So yeah, we'll obviously see how that plays over time. It seems to me that he does have a relationship with Jai Simpkin. I don't know how close it is, but it could only be a good thing, I suppose. So, but I know Cameron. 100%. I know Cameron Zurhaar is good friends with Braden Maynard as well, so maybe that's another reason. But
are any of them friends with Marcus Bontempelli or?
Luke McDonald isn't he? I thought he was, but maybe not.
He might be actually.
Yeah,
you might be onto something there.
He's good mates with Jack Billings, his best mate. So would you like him at the club, Jesse?
Look, he's a small forward.
Yeah, he doesn't do much anymore.
No, he's
Good VFL player now, so
he's probably past it, unfortunately.
no, he is now. So he can't get a go from Melbourne, who are getting smashed every week. So that's just how it is. Jesse, sorry to keep you so long. Any final thoughts out there?
No, look, I think we've covered it all. I think we're all really expecting us to be pretty competitive this week. So let's see how we go.
No, and that's all you can do. Patrick did come in. Finally, someone saying, I'm not worried about the money. It looks like we've got money to burn. Jesse, I think it's an opportunity to see where it lands. Big culture player in class, and that's obviously talking about Maynard. So, yeah, thanks for coming in, Patrick. But, Jesse, thanks so much for coming on this Monday evening, carrying the ship as well. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure I'll get you back on next week.
Thank you. Glad to be
here. All right. And thank you to all your listeners as well. We're back on Wednesday this week. I am going away on Thursday, so I'll probably do a Wednesday episode. So look out for that. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell Jesse how good he is. Tell your mates and whoever about it. That's it from me. Bye for now, and go Roos. Yeah, it's an interesting talking point, isn't it? Like...